Welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. I'm Elder Michael, and I have with me today Officer Charmaine, Elder Jeffrey, and Sophia. This is where history meets prophecy. Go right ahead. Today we are going to be telling the story or giving information pertaining to the contribution of the slaves to society in general. And when I say society in general, to the entire world, a contribution to our society to make it better, to give us a foundation on which to build, starting with the United States and moving to Europe and now all over the world. This is going to be one fantastic and informative presentation. Please join with us with your questions and support. Officer Charmaine, take it from there, please.
Yes, welcome everyone to another session of History Meets Prophecy. And backed by popular demand, as Elder Michael said, we do have Elder Jeffrey from the United States. He's responsible for all the branches there. And we have a newcomer, Sophia, from the UK. And I know that everybody was so amazed by our guests last time. So we thought, why not? Since we're still in Freedom Month, we might as well invite them back and we could continue our discussion. As Elder Michael said, we are going to look at the contribution of our forefathers, the slaves that have come to the US or North America, should I say, and Europe. And even before that, I mean, don't forget we were also slaves in Egypt. So it all counts. So, even though you're going to see some dates and you're going to think to yourself, well, that was before the slavery that took place in 1611. Hey, we were in Egypt as well, okay? So we're not going to discount that. We're going to have a great session. But once again, thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us. Once again, this is an interactive session, so we're looking forward to your questions and your comments. And if you haven't done so yet, please do not forget to go and like and comment, share the video. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. So welcome again. We're going to have such a great time. I'm so looking forward to this.
Yes, definitely. There's nothing like the contribution to an advanced society. And I think people need to recognize the fact that the way the world is today, they had to be a foundation laid. Someone had to do the hard work. Someone had to lay that foundation so that others can stand. The way I like to describe it is this way. I say we offered our shoulders as a people for others to come and stand on and build a society that we hope and prayed would have been constructive. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way we did. We wanted to, but at least we did our job.
We offered our shoulders? I don't think so. I don't think we offered our shoulders.
Well, you know why?
Regardless. Okay. I like
yes,
the way you
there
put
was
that.
punishment involved, but we had no choice. That's the way.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't have a choice. It was there. But one thing I always say to my children is that if you're going to put your hands to anything, you do it to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's sweeping the floor, whether it's washing dishes, whether it's your math, whatever it is, you put your hands to it to do the best that you can do. And I think that is probably the same concept of our forefathers from day one, because whatever we put our hands to often turns out to be fantastic. And you're going to see that today through some of the examples that we have listed here. So I was just wondering, the Elder Jeffrey, you have
absolutely, yeah. I can't wait to jump in. Peace, everybody. Thank you for having me back. But to kind of, what Elder Michael was saying in a sense about lending our shoulders, like it was voluntary, and definitely not voluntary. Definitely we were brought here oppressed and enslaved, right, in chains, right? Absolutely. Horrific. But in that state, we had a decision to make, right? And decision was, are we just going to feeble away and die? Mm-hmm. Or are we going to, quote unquote, make the best of our situation and still develop our faculties? Because what people don't understand, it wasn't just our brute strength, it was also our intellect and our spirit that we brought to make this society what it is today. You know what I'm saying? So even in that environment, like you said, Like our elder always taught us, wherever you are, despite the circumstance, you make that environment the best it could be because you are there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that, and America would not have been America without us.
Yep.
Agree.
Yep.
What about the UK?
Yes, I am really pumped up and excited about today's lesson. I've been looking forward to this all day, especially because all of the knowledge that we will learn together is more than the average less group of lessons in any Black History Month
Right.
educational institution. So I'm no other place on the planet is so dedicated to sharing the truth about our history. So this really is the place to come to just learn more. So I'm just so honored to be a part of this show. I'm excited.
Yep. Excellent.
So with that, why don't we get started, Officer Charmaine?
Yes, okay, we can get to our first slides. Once again, welcome everybody. And we're going to have an interactive session, so please don't forget to add your comments and your questions. This is about all of us, and we're all going to learn from each other. So please put your information there so that we can share it together and learn together. And we're going to be starting off with freedom fighters. First of all, I should say that this title came from our elder who actually did um, a show called Freedom Fighters, and it looked at several historical figures throughout history. And, we had different individuals playing certain people throughout history. For example, we had Marianne Shadd and we had Harriet Tubman and everyone's favorite Malcolm X and Malcolm Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King, and there were so many, even John Simcoe. We had so many people playing, different members throughout history, and so I thought it's such a good idea just to start with our freedom fighters, because throughout history we've had so many, people recognizing the injustices that were brought on our people and taking it upon themselves to fight for freedom. Even our very own elder is a freedom fighter. So, we take him and we follow his example. It's not always about picking up a gun or a sword or a knife or whatever. Sometimes you have to think about other ways of fighting. And this is where we are today. There is a saying, from the scriptures that this is not a battle where, we're fighting with war, guns and what have you. It is a battle of principality and power and spiritual wickedness in high places. So, we have to educate ourselves in order to fight this type of battle, and this is where it starts. It starts with educating not just ourselves, but also our children and their children and everyone around us, because without that education, it's, you're fighting a futile battle. What's the point of fighting if you don't have that education or identity of self or who you are or where you're coming from? It's like, what is the purpose? Why are you fighting? And this is what we're going to understand today.
Right. When you say freedom fighters, the one that comes to mind right away, people like William Wilberforce. We
Mm-hmm.
discussed about these before, but it
Yes.
doesn't hurt to repeat some of what they did. And
Yes.
King James, of course, made the translation of our history and culture. John Brown and Thaddeus Stevens. Those are the four that come to mind. And what is so remarkable, and we like to say this over and over, is none of these gentlemen look like me, but they fought for me and for you so that we could work together. And again, I talked about our forefathers as slaves, allowing others to stand on their shoulders. These guys, William Wilberforce, John Brown, Thaddeus Stevens, and King James, we stand on their shoulders now. And our elder has utilized the foundation or some of the material that they use to construct this Israelite nation, to restore the precepts, because, of course, King James made the translation of the Bible, Thaddeus Stevens allowed for the freedom or the end of the slave trade. John Brown made the sacrifice to make an awareness available to the entire public. And Thaddeus Stevens offered to the U.S. Congress a reparations effort that did not pass, but yet he tried.
Yeah. And, freedom fighters is also in the songs. And, you think about Bob Marley. I always remember the song that he sang, which was Redemption Song. A lot of his music was way before its time, but it spoke to, the situation or the nature of our people, where they were and the struggles that they were going through. But we're going to look at some of that later on, because it doesn't matter where you are, but every facet of life has some form of freedom fighter, whether it be song, whether it be dance or music, whether it be acting, whether it be, education. But it's recognizing what people have done for us in order for us to be where we are today, and what we can take up and do in order to move forward and help others to do the same thing. So
Absolutely. I think, and that's why I love being a part of this discussion, because we don't live on an island. The world didn't start just when we were born. There are people who came before and made some great sacrifices in order for us to even be on this platform talking and having the quote unquote freedoms that we have right now.
yes.
And I think it would be very, selfish and small-minded of us to not acknowledge that and kind of reflect on those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope what Elder Michael brought up, if we don't stand for the truth,
Mm-hmm.
then we can fall for anything. And a part of the narrative today has to do with this whole racial issue, that there's some value in Black greatness or white supremacy or all these things, the battle of race. And it can make, if someone coming up around this time could make those false conclusions about it's about Black against white. And it's not about that. It's about the truth against the lie. And no matter who it is, Black, white, polka dot, whatever it may be, if they're standing for the truth, or at least to the point of they're trying to help, God's people come out of oppression, then that's someone that we definitely need to recognize and to give them that their due, the respect due for the sacrifice that they made. Someone like John Brown, right? It wasn't just rhetoric, it wasn't just politics, but he sacrificed himself and his sons to help free us. How can you not honor someone like that and help to see that it's not every white person is not your enemy, and every Black person is not your friend. So it's a lot more complicated than that. So we follow the truth. We don't follow race.
Yes, absolutely. I have a question to ask our guests. How many people have actually seen the play Freedom Fighters?
Oh, yeah.
And so put it in the chat. If you've seen the play Freedom Fighters, put that in the chat. And you could even put your favorite character that was on the show. Put that in the chat as well. Also, how many of you have actually looked at any of the individuals that Elder Michael mentioned earlier? If you spent, the time within the last 2-3 weeks, actually the last month or so, looking at those individuals. If you have, please put that in the chat. And the reason why I'm asking, because, throughout the weeks, Elder Michael and myself, we get lots of questions and queries, and it's really quite incredible, because it tells me that people are really interested and they are going out there doing their research. So put it in the chat. We've got to encourage each other to go out there and look at this information. Oh, Mo Gamer says, I have not seen it. It's okay. We can find it where can we find it to watch? Okay.
They have to go online or do some research at the libraries, etc. But to your point, it's very important, because we are beginning with the effort that was put out by people that did not look like us. And now we are trying to share the effort that was put forward by our enslaved ancestors that nobody talks about. You see the difference? Confidence as opposed to fear or insecurity. We are confident to talk about people that don't look like us, but others, when it comes to our ancestors who made a meaningful and really tremendous contribution, nobody talks about it.
Yeah. And I think it's so very important. This is what really lends to our identity, and that is identifying where or how our foundation was established. You know,
Mhm.
when you read the scriptures, you're reading when the God of Israel, he's always reminding us, remember what I did for you then. Remember when I brought you out of Egypt. Remember, remember, remember. And you know, even Elder, he's always remember, remember. You know, you forgot that. Remember this, you know. So memory is so crucial
Yeah.
for
Yes.
our development. And you know, the memory comes with all kinds of emotion. And it's about trying to separate yourself from that emotion and not get lost in it. But it's important to always bring it to memory so that you don't make those same mistakes and so that you can learn from the past and so you can even use what you've learned in order to build your future. It's like your memory is like a bag of tools. And I always say, and it is so important, if you don't remember, who is going to? You know, who is going to remember you and your legacy in your life? Nobody cares. And so it's up to each individual to always remember and forget what those others say that, oh, why are you guys always talking about slavery? Why this, why that? It's not always about slavery. It's about remembering because I don't want to be enslaved again. I don't want my family to be enslaved, you know, so this is what we have to do in order to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do. We have to remember, and if it means reading the scriptures time and time again so that we remember, that's what we need to do, and that's why it's so important. So on that note, I'm going to bring a slide up, and you know, just for a debate. So if you want to talk about some of these wonderful individuals that have helped us in the past, I will turn that over to Elder Jeffrey and Safia.
Well, peace everyone. Peace
Please.
everyone. I'm okay. I'm ready to I am actually ready to just jump out of my skin. I'm so this is really a passion project for me, seeing Toussaint Louverture and Huey Percy Newton, Mary Prince. But I think first of all, I would just like to open by talking about Mary Prince, who was the um, first Black woman in England to have anything published, to have a narrative published. And she was a woman who was enslaved and she was sold multiple times. Her story is so sad. It's brutal. She was flogged multiple times. She was humiliated. She did find passage to England, and it's and elder so when Elder Michael was talking about the people who helped with our struggle, and of course who did not look like us, Mary Prince was actually able to bring her story to the masses because of a man called Thomas Pringle, who was an abolitionist writer who edited her work and said, I need to get your story out there. And it can't be me who speaks. It needs to be you because it's your story. And, we constantly talk about who has the right to tell what story. And it's so important that we know our own history, that we share our own narratives. So he really allowed Mary Prince to be empowered enough to share the atrocious things that were happening to her, and she managed to publish her narrative before the abolition of the slave trade, and it was her narrative which did help to bring about the abolition, and when it comes to publication, her story, it had to go into reprint at least 3 times. It was so popular. So it's just a, a incredible story, and she learned how to read and write by studying the King James Bible.
Hey,
So
yeah.
when I found that out, I thought, oh wow, that's so amazing! Like the power of this of our scriptures. So it was so inspiring to learn about her.
Wow,
Yes.
that
Wow.
is amazing. And
Yeah.
it's so great because you can imagine before telling her story, what story was being told, right? What was the story that was being told? And probably that either, slavery was deserving or that it wasn't that bad or, that type of stuff. But to be able
Exactly.
to hear, firsthand accounts, especially nowadays, we know this whole fake news thing, the propaganda of it, but to be able to have her tell her own stories, that's amazing. Yeah. So,
Um,
one of my favorite freedom fighters, Toussaint Overture, right? Toussaint Overture, and that he was a freedom fighter from Haiti, and as we talked about enslavement and the slave trade, only about 5% or so that came from Western Africa on that transatlantic slave trade came to the United States of America. 95% went to the Caribbean and to South America. And one of the states that was very, one of the big slave plantation islands at that time, Santo Domingo, which we call Haiti today, at that time was owned by the French. It went through French, Spanish hands, a little bit, but at that time owned by the French. And Toussaint Overture, ended up leading the slave revolt to fight against the French army. And the French army was led by Napoleon Bonaparte in France, right? The one who almost took over the whole world. And he actually fought that army on several occasions, and actually was successful, to the point that was able to get Haitian independence. This is the first democratic country that got freedom from colonialism in the Americas, right? The first, right? And then also it cost France and Napoleon so much that Napoleon had to actually find more assets in order to help make up, what he lost with Haiti and an investment he made in trying to fight against Toussaint Overture. He was such a strategic and smart general that it took so much that he actually had to sell land that he had in the Americas to the British. The Americas, and the land that he sold is the what's called the Louisiana Purchase. So it's a mass piece of land from Mississippi going, all the way out to the west. That is huge, and I'm here in St. Louis as a part of that, right? This was originally Louisiana Purchase, and the reason it's a part of the United States is because Toussaint Overture caused so much havoc for Napoleon. He had to sell it in order to America in order to gain up enough money to fight the battle against him.
Wow.
So he has so much. There's so much to tell about him, but it's definitely someone that we want to honor because, again, it wasn't just brute strength, but it was strategy, and it also was, his bravery in order to stand up and fight against, at that time, one of the most powerful countries on the planet.
Wow. Just before I go on, I just want to say that Sophie said, thank you so much for sharing the life of Mary Prince, Safia. Because this is a British freedom fighter, and a lot of people, I guess, in America would not know about her. So we do appreciate that story because if it affects us all, regardless of whether we're in Europe or in the Americas, it affects us all. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful connection between all of this, right? Whether things are happening in the UK, the Caribbean, or the States, we all were affected by it. And I think that's why I love highlighting these individuals.
Oh, I have to say what Seafield says, as the Northern Star was our people's way to freedom, now the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries is our people's way to and for the truth. Oh my goodness, absolutely. Thank you.
That is a phenomenal comment. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at it from, as they would say, an astrological perspective, which you can call it really a spiritual perspective, today we fulfill that mandate. We just happen to be in the north, and we are the star of truth, right? So you can't touch that when it comes to Israel.
Amen.
And we have to give credit where credit is due, because had it not been for Elder Shadrach, we would not know anything about ourselves for the more rest of the world.
Right.
So thank you, Elder
Pillar
Shadrach.
at the border. Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. That was really quite fascinating, though, about this whole Haitian revolt and looking at Haiti. Unfortunately, Haiti is not in a very good place today, but the history itself is quite commendable, for lack of a better.
And the condition of Haiti today, a part of that is the pushback that happened, right? It's purposeful, right?
Well, Elder Jeffrey, I think a lot of it had to do with the people as well, because there was a little bit of a pushback. But so what? I mean, the thing is, you don't have to embrace it. and they embrace, as a matter of fact, they embrace Christianity,
Yeah.
and they just paint a black image on it, so to speak. So in other words, they took their voodoo and blended it with European Christianity, and that's where Haiti is today.
Yeah.
If they had left it alone, Haiti destroyed or defeated not only the French, the Americans, the British, and maybe
Yes.
this,
The Spanish. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they had to be dealt with, in other words, in the political terms, right?
Right.
They could not be allowed, when I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be today, a,
Mm.
a so-called black nation to be so powerful.
Yes.
But Haiti did not only use the physical means, like you said,
Mm.
they used spiritual means. So that had to be tarnished, that had to be corrupted so that it wouldn't work anymore. And that's the same situation in which we find ourselves today. A lot of our people are not listening to our
Yeah.
teaching.
Mm.
They continue to listen to the teaching of the enemy. And now they blame the enemy for all of what's happening to them. You
Yeah.
can't have it both ways. That,
Right.
yeah, it's
You-
terrible.
You bring up a really good point, because yes, look at them now. They may be free physically, but
Yeah,
spiritually they are enslaved because of what they have
exactly.
adopted, and
Right.
that's a sadder situation to be in.
Yeah.
To be enslaved spiritually to
Yes.
to this this demonic power that's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So
Haiti is a very good example. I
Mm.
tell you why. Haiti, it shares a common border with, is it Santo Domingo? What's the other?
Dominican Republic.
yeah,
Right, Dominican Republic. And why is it that a couple years ago they had hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes? It was ravished. And Dominican Republic, nothing. Not
yeah,
even, a feather was dropped on them. How is it possible?
Yeah.
yeah,
And even in Missouri, Elder Jeffrey, you can speak to this. You
Mhm.
walk down the street, they're all beautiful homes. Most of them are owned by the European descendants. And you cross the street, the same street,
Mhm.
one side white, the other side black. But when you crossed over, it's like you've gone to hell.
Totally different. Yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
third world country, right?
How
Yeah.
is
In the
that
same
possible?
the same city, burnt out buildings, and don't get me started. We could definitely go through
Yeah,
that.
well, that's what I'm
But,
saying.
but you know what? Unfortunately, and that's kind of why this is important, right? Because a lot of times the narrative, especially in school, is somehow we are deficient and don't have the ability or potential to free ourselves or to govern ourselves or have the intellect, that type of thing. So these heroes and these milestones, to me, in my mind, show that's all rubbish. We definitely have it. But then what's the problem? The problem is we have it and we've shown it and we've proved it. But then every time we get the opportunity of having a little bit of freedom, we go right back to the spirituality of the people who oppressed us.
yes,
Right.
Right. And you say, look at the shirt that I have on, Black Wall Street, right? So last year we
yes,
were acknowledging the 100 years, right, of just great society that was created in Oklahoma, right, where you had wealth, we had people had airplanes. Like, I mean, this is all black thing. That's all great, but guess what? What did they bring with them?
exactly.
Absolutely the same spirituality, the same philosophies that they had in the white community. So it was, short lived. And so we see these spurts of happening like,
That's-
okay, yeah, we can aspire greatness, but if you don't have the right foundation, the right spiritual foundation, it will not stand. And that's the part that we prove every time by looking at our history. So thank goodness for Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries and Elder Shadrach laying the right foundation, so now we can use the gifts properly and build something that will last.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Such a great point, because you see it time and time again. How is it? Why can't we maintain these great things that we've got? All these inventions and all this greatness. It's because we're dabbling in an area that we're not supposed to be. That was never designed for us. That was never there to support us. It was never for us, and it does the opposite. It actually blinds us and enslaves us. As I said before, it's a spiritual enslavement. If you say that you're free because you can walk down the store, to the shops and do this, that, and the other, but you're still walking into the shrines, the Christian shrines, you are not free. You have no idea. Your mind is still shackled. And this is what a
Hypocrisy.
lot of people, and this is what a lot of people adopt for themselves. And it's just, oh my goodness, it's just such a sad
Go
situation.
ahead, Sophia.
The Haitian Revolution actually did start with a voodoo ceremony. So the night before, they gathered together and they had an official voodoo ceremony before the revolution. And so I believe the three largest revolutions in the Caribbean. So first with 1816 Busser in Barbados, and the Jamaican Revolution, the Christmas Revolution, the Christmas Rebellion in Jamaica. They never started with a voodoo ceremony, but then the Haitian one did. And there's something, I think every West Indian island, every single Caribbean island, there is something about Haiti and knowing that, and it is spiritual. It is spiritual. But every time, if you ask any West Indian, what's going on in Haiti, it's so sad. They'll say, "Oh, it's something to do with the voodoo. It's something, there's a heaviness when Haiti is talked about." So yes, and we don't talk about that enough.
And it is sad because you want to big them up, for all their successes, but you look at them, it's like, no, what you guys are doing is wrong. At the end of the day, you are damaging yourself, and it's so hard to say that you want to support them because of that, because you don't want to buy into that thing that they get into, the voodoo and the worshiping of the dead and the worshiping of ancestors. This is really crazy. I know somebody mentioned earlier on, I think it was Felicia, mentioned that it's the West that has never forgiven Haiti. But you know what? Sometimes you got to point the thumb at yourself, the finger at yourself, because they could have been so much further ahead. They could have been
Well,
so much further
there's
ahead.
the question.
Mhm.
There's the question right now from Mo Gamer. How
Mhm.
do we apply the knowledge of our history towards the building of our future? The,
Oh,
the, the key here is not to follow the oppressor,
yes.
right? Not to follow the oppressor.
Mhm.
Choose none of his ways. I think it's Proverbs 3, 20 or something like that. I'll get it for you later. But if you cannot follow, especially when they're going down and expect to go up, it doesn't work like that. So we have to look and see the instructions, the discipline that was established by our forefathers when they were in their land and what they did. We've got a whole an endless list, of prophets,
Mm.
of people from Moses all the way up, right? That did phenomenal things. Remember, we destroyed Egypt without firing one shot, one bow and arrow we didn't use. How is that possible,
Mm.
right? How is it that Joshua can stop the sun, make it stand still, to do
Yep.
what he had to do? These are the things that we need to focus on
Yeah.
because they put us in an entirely different spiritual and mental dimension.
Yes.
That's what we need to focus on.
Okay, and that takes us to our next set of slides. And it goes to something that you've said, Elder Michael, several times in the past, and that is, there have been many out there in the world that have tried to do something, but it was Elder Shadrach that's got it right.
That's right.
But it's still important to look at these individuals. They follow the footsteps of our prophets, of our forefathers, especially in that each of these individuals, you read up about them. We have here Nathaniel Turner, or Nat Turner, as he's known as. We have Gabriel Prosa, and we have Denmark Vesey, or Vesey. Um, all of these individuals, the one thing that they had in common, oh my goodness, it's so sad. The one thing that they had in common was that they were betrayed by their own people. So we have one problem, which is our people going and worshiping the dead, taking on voodoo, taking on a philosophy that does not belong to them. So that's one problem. Then we have another problem with our own people turning us in,
Mm.
especially at a time like this. This is this when you read each of these stories, it's almost as though you're reading the same thing, because they go through the same set of trials and tribulation. They receive a calling, they hear something, they understand that they are not regular people, that they are people of God. They want to do something for not just themselves but their entire community. They go out there, they find a way of getting arms or rallying the people. Sometimes they are successful enough to start a battle, but every single time they have been betrayed.
It's absolutely correct, Officer Charmaine, because in order to answer the question that was posed earlier, in addition to discipline, we have to remember to be loyal to each other. That's where harmony comes in. And I like to use the hand to make my point, because I said, what do you see? There are 5 fingers. Each one is different. Each one is unique. The one finger, the thumb, doesn't say, you know what, I'm the biggest and the thickest, I should be in charge here. No, they work together. They come together to form a fist. When we have a fist, we could defend our integrity. We could even attack where necessary to defend our integrity. But the point is, they work together as one. And a lot of our people, they like to raise the fist, but that is just a physical action. There is no loyalty therein. We have to look for that. And to bring that forward, we have to look at the culture and the spiritual dimension, because there are 5 fingers, each one representing a certain dimension. And once these work together, we could accomplish almost anything, because there's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, so Sophie just said something, and I think it's so crucial to understand as well, because you look at this and you think to yourself, this must be a phenomenon that every single time we have an uprising, that somebody is out there to betray us. But other cultures or others see the richness of our people and culture, but we don't. And we're always selling birthrights. We're always selling our birthright. We're always doing this. But every single nation in the world, they come together, to buy a temple, to build a community center or something, to open up a shop, to help their people to come over, to help them to progress, but we are always selling out each other.
Yeah. And the reason for that, Sophie got it correct. Why are we so divided? Netta Harris is asking. Yes. The reason for this is selfishness. Selfishness. We have to learn to share. We see the key is we have different skill sets. That's a beautiful thing. But people then they look at you and they say, oh, Officer Charmaine, she's got this. Officer Charmaine has long hair. I don't have any. Do you think I hate her for that? No. I think that's her talent. Now I have to find my own. And then that's not all. We merge, right? We share that talent so that there is a third element involved. That's why I like the pyramid, because there's that 3-dimensional effect that works together to make the pyramid one of the strongest components ever. And, that's a whole different lesson in itself. But that is what we need to come together as one and share. That's the key.
Yeah. That reminds me, it reminds me of Moses, right? Who was brought up in Pharaoh's house. Definitely a life of privilege. He probably lived better than most Egyptians, right? But yet and still, when he had the opportunity to try to support his brother, and he did it. He actually murdered an Egyptian for the sake of his brother, and so you can imagine his mind probably thinking, I don't know, maybe he was going to lead a slave revolt. Who knows what his plan was? But that was cut short, not because of the Egyptians, but because of his Israelite brothers who came in like, hey, we're gonna tell you because you're trying to chastise us, and he had to run away, because of that situation. So that idea of division, because of the state that we're in, is not new. Jesus the Christ, right? When his disciples were having the argument about who's going to sit on his left, who's going to sit on his right in the kingdom, whatever. And he's like, yo, guys, stop, wait, stop. Okay, you're adopting this mindset from the Gentiles. That's the way they think. We don't think that way, right? We if you want to be the greatest in the kingdom, be a servant to your brothers, So it's the whole mindset. A lot of what we're seeing here is all comes together that we're adopting the value and philosophy of the world, of the society around us, thinking that's the pathway to freedom, not understanding that we have to flip it totally and see that I'm my value is my value that I have to my people and to my family and to my God, not to me acquiring wealth for myself. So that mindset is something that we have to
It does. It goes back to trying to be an individual, to try and uplift yourself, But you are nothing if nobody testifies for you, or if nobody recognizes the things that you do. If you do everything for yourself, then no one's going to recognize you doing anything for anybody else, because it's always for yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's where your selfishness comes in. But you're so correct. You have even with Jesus, as you mentioned, from Moses to Jesus, you see the same pattern in our people.
Mhm.
Even he was betrayed by his very close, the inner circle,
Yeah, in a
and it
circle.
still continues today, this
Right.
betrayal, and it's so very sad and so very frightening. But I think, if we learn to work together to unify, to, unify,
Hmm.
first and foremost, recognize that we're all coming from a common place, we all have a common history, then we can fulfill the necessary prophecies to move forward.
100%.
And that brings us to the next slide. I think we've lost Elder Michael, but
Yeah.
hopefully he will be back.
Hopefully he comes back in. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's go to the next slide, unless any of you want to comment on those any of the three that were there.
I just want to say I completely agree with what you're saying, and I truly believe that if we betray our own, we are actually betraying ourselves.
Hmm.
So it's almost like we have this tendency to see ourselves as separate from our kin, from our brethren, and so how can we say that we love the God of Israel, and then we can treat each other so cruelly if we're meant to love our brethren as we love ourselves? So if you're
Yeah.
betraying your brethren, you're betraying yourself.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. You know what? Absolutely. That's the bottom line. God of Israel has chosen each and every one of us to join his family, I would say. Everybody that has the ears to hear, and the eyes to see and a heart to understand, they've joined this family, right? And being a family, we have to understand what that really entails. That's looking out for each other, helping each other, doing the things that we are supposed to do together. But then, this is one way of bringing everyone together. And I love this slide because it signifies so much. It signifies so, so much. So, just to tell the world, if you don't already know, this is August, this month of August. It is known as Freedom Month. And there is a group called RT400, which is spearheading August is Freedom Month. So
Yes.
throughout the entire month of August, we are trying to um, implement different programs so people can recognize not just August as Freedom Month, but the history behind it, because it's so integral to our people. And if everybody gets a clear understanding of why we're celebrating August, then this is one way that we can come together. This is just one way, and it's such a great way, so everybody can actually, it's not something that we sit down and, oh yes, we should have this date because this is how we feel about it, or because somebody was born on this day, or somebody did something miraculous. It's because in August we came to North America as slaves. Okay, we first came to North America as slaves in 1611. Oh, sorry, 1619. The Bible was
19.
written in 1611. Yes. So in 7 years later, 1619, we came to North America. And at the same time, 400 years later, we received our freedom. So it's such an integral time for us to remember.
Yeah,
Elder,
also one of the things I like about August is originally on the original calendar, August was the 6th month. So it's in the middle practically. It's either the part of the fifth, part of the 6th month of the year. So it's a perfect time to reflect and then to plan for the future. You can look back at the previous 5 or 6 months, see where you've been and what you need to do to improve, and then plan for the rest of the year and to build on that. So having August as Freedom Month says so much, and I could get into so much about freedom, But
Yeah.
I will leave that for another time because freedom is phenomenal. It's not what people think. Freedom is not the lack of being enslaved. Freedom is much more than that. It's the ability to take full responsibility for self, to be yourself. There's so many people that are trying to be other folks, and I'm saying if you aspire to be somebody else, who's going to be you? But
Yeah.
that's a whole different
Yeah.
discussion.
Mm.
I just want to read this quickly, and then I just want to turn it over to Elder Jeffrey, because this time it was so phenomenal for all over the world. We had a flag raised in various cities, and this was our goal, and it meant so much. But one of the things, I'll just read this out so that everybody gets a clearer picture. But you can go on Instagram, and you can go on YouTube, to our channels, and you'll see the entire events actually that took place throughout the whole month. But August the 23rd, 2022 was our flag raising ceremony, and this took place at Toronto City Hall for Remember the 400. So this is showcasing our flag, which is so crucial. It's critical because raising a banner helps the world to see that we are making a statement that August is Freedom Month. And it's about remembering the 400 years. That is so crucial. And that's why that statement is actually on the flag, so that we never forget what took place in that 400-year span. And so we had an MP from Richmond Hill. I'm not going to even pretend to pronounce his name. Um, he spoke alongside the mayor of Toronto, which is John Tory. And John Tory also presented our elder, which is the founder of Remember the 400, with a proclamation for August, and they call it Emancipation Month or Emancipation Day. But regardless, the fact is, it is being recognized, and it's not just in Toronto, it's being recognized all over. So I just wanted to put this to Elder Jeffrey, if you have because
Oh,
I know the space did
this
so
is
much as well.
fantastic. I'm just so excited about this, and I should have started out by saying Happy Freedom Month, everybody,
Happy Freedom
because
Month!
Happy
yeah,
Freedom
exactly.
Month. Happy
This
Freedom
is
Month.
fantastic because I feel so happy for Elder Shadrach because years the vision that he's had for this to take place, and not just the vision, but the work and the structure and organization and people's hands who went to make this. This didn't just happen. It wasn't a fluke. It was hard, dedicated, focused work. So thank you, Elder Shadrach, for your vision. Thank you to Priest Doreen and Priest Tyrone for their leadership and hard work. Remember 400 in order to make this happen here in Toronto, which is the headquarters, which is fabulous, but also all over the world. I know if I can speak personally in St. Louis, we built relationships with Senator Brian Williams, and we also have our proclamation making August Freedom Month here in St. Louis and in Missouri. We have our flag raising over the capital of St. Louis City, for the whole month of Missouri. Same things happening in New Jersey. I know in Atlanta. I know in the UK as well had the flag. So this is a national phenomenon, and it's all through the vision
International.
of our elder international. Thank you. Yes, our vision of our elder Shadrach and guidance in making it happen. And what I love is so beautiful about it is is that it connects us all. So we're not in our silos, right? There's a lot of work taking place in Toronto. There's a lot of work taking place here in St. Louis. There's a lot of work taking place in the UK. But this is an opportunity for us to come together and share and connect and be able to really support one another and see this is a global effort and a global issue. And the solution is being approached the same fashion. So this is exciting. We're laying the groundwork. I think generations to come will thank us for the work that we do and the vision of our elder Shadrach. So it's exciting, very, very exciting.
So this brings us all to that whole idea of unity, and Elder Mike's
Yes,
hand, with making a fist coming together. This is the demonstration of that unity. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and you're right. Great thanks or big thank you goes out to everybody that participated in helping making this month a wonderful month, a memorable month, and a month that we will continue to celebrate in
Go
years
ahead,
to come.
Sophia.
I have to give a huge shout out to the UK, to the UK, because we also had our flag raising event on August 23rd, and it was such a monumental and fantastic occasion. I was, frantically writing down everything that happened, and when the flag was raised, and to see the council and the hard work from Minister Charmaine and Angela, and it was such a beautiful moment. And when the flag was raised, the wind blew at the perfect time, and we heard the national anthem, and we heard the UK anthem with the Israelite Nation national anthem. It was fantastic. And then we saw the British, and there was a moment where even the UK flag, it kind of dwindled a little bit, and the Israelite Nation flag was like a lot stronger. So I just want to make sure everyone heard that correctly.
Yes.
I did, a lot of us were saying that actually we should replace the flags and have a few more around Barking Town Hall. So I know there are plans to, of course, grow that. But I would also like to add a fact I found out, that 219 organizations have tried to change Black History Month in the UK. They've tried to do, various different movements and things, but what I love, and so Pan-African organizations, Zionist organizations, this and that, and this Pentecostalists, so many have tried. Yeah. But remember, the 400 is unique in that it's again with the selfishness. It's not just an ego. Oh, hey, look, we're trying to do, it's giving back to the community. There's food banks. There's, a dedication to educate people. Our elder Shadrach had a vision, a true vision, and at the heart we have our culture, we have the God of Israel. So that's how I know that this isn't, people are asking me, oh Safia, but this is just another a Kwanzaa thing. No, this is completely
different. Just wait and see.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
What's to come. Wait and see what's to come.
That was absolutely beautiful. It's just so good, to hear it coming from someone else. And I think Sophie or somebody said, it's really good to hear it coming from the heart and from your own experience. I could tell the story, but to hear you say it, to hear Elder Jeffrey, because you've been there, you were on ground zero when it was happening. Witnesses, exactly. Witnesses for something that's been done to unify our people.
Amen.
Wow, beautiful, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, if you're listening. Thank you out there, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your efforts. Thank you for everything that you've done, to make August Freedom Month. So important. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, what I'd like to say to sum up that portion of it, I like to say that Black lives don't matter unless we remember the 400, because therein we could comprehend, we could understand, we can appreciate who we are and what our mandate is. So if you really want your Black life to matter, remember the 400.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well said.
Well, exactly. So now we're going on to the political part of this program. We do have a few, but I know we're not going to make it. But let's go on to the political parts. Let's look at some of our political heroes. So, do you want to take this away, Elder Jeffrey?
Oh, sure, absolutely. These are three of my favorite guys here, actually. And start at the top, W.E.B. Du Bois, right? And so from the early 1900s, intellectual. He was the first African American to earn a doctorate degree. Wrote many books, The Soul of Black Folks. He did quite a few things in trying his best in order to try to really push us forward. I think people are aware of him as the founder of the NAACP, but nowadays not sure if it's as famous or as powerful as it used to be. But back in the day, especially this was the organization that would try to fight for civil rights along the way. So a lot of his life is just really fascinating. And I think at the time, again, he's coming up at a time where the notion, again, in the large society is that, Black people were less than, right, and inferior, and came from a place that, they would never be able to compete intellectually. And so this is one person who really not just changed that, but also demonstrated some of the things and theories and different things that he's accomplished wasn't just for Black people. It was he is one of the prominent intellectuals, for of 20th century, period. So a lot of different things that really owned to him. Um, another thing, especially along the education piece, right? Another individual, and this is right here in St. Louis, is Dred Scott, right?
Mhm.
I when I first moved here to St. Louis from New York, New Jersey, and we went to the what's called the old courthouse, and it's the courthouse where Dred Scott had his case. So very very you think about it, he was one of many individuals who actually had went to court to get his freedom. Like you mentioned, there are a lot of different ways that we would fight for our freedom. Some, as we mentioned earlier, would go to war, like Toussaint Overture. Some led slave rebellions, like Nat Turner. Others, such as W. Du Bois, which it's after slavery, but it's still during the Jim Crow era, would fight against the oppression of Jim Crow, through education and creating schools and programs. Well, Dred Scott actually went to the court, to the legal environment, and actually went there to fight for his freedom and actually be able to make a legal case for his freedom. What made it very this case something that we remember is because it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and he actually won his initial case. Then it was his owners actually tried to get it overturned, and up to the Supreme Court, and that's where the United States is sort of on record, saying that what's called a landmark decision, that no, he cannot have his freedom because Black people are property, right? And this isn't just someone saying this, is the highest court in the land saying this. And they are property, therefore they do not have any rights that a white person is bound to respect. So he was, and forever will be, as all Black people, slaves and property. And so that writing it in ink, as you said, the Supreme Court is really a part of the piece that really led towards the Civil War and fueling that, the abolitionists against the the Confederates. So it was a very noble case. And a couple of things are why again think about the idea of a person during that time standing up in a courtroom with the judge and the jury, and no one looks like him, demanding their freedom in the legal court system. Definitely something to be respected.
Yeah, just wanted to say that this is actually 1857, not 1957. That would be crazy. Just to clarify, it's actually 1857, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's a monument here in St. Louis to him and to his wife. And just this past recently, not just for him, but also to recognize it wasn't just him, but there were hundreds of slaves who also tried to follow the same path before and after him, and some are successful. Someone actually went to court and fought an all-white establishment and actually got there legally. They are able to get their freedom, in that environment. So it's just to honor those individuals who fought for their freedom is something I think is worthy.
Amen. That's so awesome. Very good.
So do you, like, in Canada and the UK, do you guys hear about these individuals at all? W. Du Bois, Dred Scott?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, in the UK, Du Bois, yes. So Dred Scott, no. This, I think, unless you are maybe a geek like myself, then you might have heard of these people. And I think what is so wonderful is that there is a plethora of incredible, intelligent, Black people throughout history. So for anyone to say that there's not enough and we have to keep using the same people, well, that's absolutely ridiculous, and we're proving that here. I'm sure there are so many people who are watching this who are going to say, okay, well, I didn't know who any of these people were, but there are more than enough. And the figures who are creating history today, even our elder Shadrach, our Supreme Council, the wonderful figures we have of today who are still paving the way for future generations. So history continues. Absolutely.
absolutely. And it's good because even to your point, Safi and Elder Jeffrey, more often than not, you're hearing the same 5-6 people time and time again, and I think you start to lose perspective of what's really going on out there. because it's just like the same for everybody. Because oh yeah, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman. It's like, but there are so many more people that had such an impact in on our lives, you know. And we'll go to the next slide, and you'll learn about one of them.
Well, real quick before you
Exciting.
before you,
Okay,
I did want to shout out
so,
Hiram Rhodes Revels, and
yes.
so he was elected right to the Senate, right? Same Senate that Obama, he was there, and he was elected to the Senate. And look at the dates in 1870, right? 1871. This is like a few years after the end of the Civil War, and this is happening in Mississippi. So he wasn't like, it wasn't a local election, it wasn't a state election. This is going all the way to to Washington D.C. and he was one of a handful of individuals during that time during Reconstruction. To me, a lot of the reason we talked about, well, how does history help us craft our future, is because the narrative today is somehow, especially among our young people, is that education is not worth anything, and that it's not gonna, you cannot, make it ahead here, and so why even try, that type of thing. And again, we want to counter that narrative to show even during this time of slavery and oppression and Jim Crow, these individuals were able to work hard, to focus, to be accountable and responsible, and to be able to accomplish great things. For him to be able to get into the Senate, he had to not just be like appeal to Black people, he had to appeal to white people as well, right? And so we see that again happening time and time again, that it's not being caught up in the race thing per se, but magnifying and developing your faculties to the best of your ability, and then you'll see the blessings that will come forward. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight these individuals because I think they definitely prove that point.
No, thank you very much. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely worth listening to. Okay, so we have our next slide. And maybe, Safi, you want to take us through Sarah Forbes Bonnet?
Vanessa, yes. This is an incredible story. So okay, so let's go to what is now Benin. This is okay. So The Woman King. There's a film coming out called The Woman King with John Boyega and I believe Viola Davis. So just remember that. So we're gonna get into this right now, because when I was researching this, I couldn't believe what I was reading. But after the abolition of the slave trade, a general goes to a king in Benin, King Gezo, and he says, well, you need to give up the slave trade. And King Gezo says, well, actually, no, that's a little hypocritical, because and when I say King Gezo, I mean an African king. So going back to how, okay, not all Black people were enslaved. Hold on a minute. So this is why we need to learn our history. King Gezo says to the general, well, actually, sir, you're a hypocrite. You British are a hypocrite. You dealt with my ancestors, with my predecessors, so I'm going to continue the slave trade. And his advisor is a man called Felix de Souza, who is the most abominable slave trader, in one of the worst, most horrendous slave traders in history. He did things he was a cruel, wicked man. He had over 300 children, at least. With enslaved women. He was a despicable creature, and he advised King Gezo to continue the slave trade because they were of course making so much money. So they were in cahoots. Now, The Woman King is actually inspired by the story. King Gezo is the same person who John Boyega is playing. So I don't know how they're going to tell the story. They also have The Woman King. So he had female warriors. And this is who, one of the leaders that Viola Davis is playing. I believe in the film. So history is going to be distorted. I believe in the film he is against the slave trade. But actually, King Gezo, he wasn't, his mind was not changed. He was still trading in slaves and palm oil. He gives the British general a girl. Her name is Sarah Forbes Bonetta, and she is named after the ship she is taken on and she's given as a gift to Queen Victoria. And Queen Victoria says, okay, well, she is now a product of the empire. So this young woman, her head is examined to measure her intelligence, and she becomes a very intelligent woman, and she also even though she has been traumatized, her parents were murdered, there was a horrendous story. She decided to stay. She learned how to be dignified. She had excellent decorum, and it was said she wanted to prove that she was not a monster. And this, and we hear all these notions about, the angry Black woman, but so much happened around her story, where Queen Victoria, many of her subjects said, well, actually, okay, well, maybe Black women can be dignified, and there are notes of this in history. So it's an incredible whirlwind story, but also to say that history is intertwined. Yes, and there's always more to the story, basically.
I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Gotta look that up. I want to know more about that. That's fun.
You see what happens when you get a name, you just want to look that up exactly, and it's so funny when you talk about this, because we are talking about names, and I want to talk about this other gentleman, but before I do, I just want to, you mentioned, this young lady, she's been named after a ship, right? And we understand that the Israelite nation, that names are so crucial,
Mhm.
right? And all of these individuals, they didn't go about, and this is probably going off topic a little bit, but all of these individuals, they didn't go about changing their names. They didn't go about changing their names. And one of the things that they did do, which I think, Safia, you mentioned, they would read the King James Version of the Bible. And they would read the words that are there, that are written in English for our forefathers and even for us to understand.
Mhm.
So they didn't go in there and start picking out different names and changing them. You know, it's like, we want to understand history. We don't want to change history. We want to understand it. And the only way you're going to understand it is by reading what's in front of you. If you start changing everything that's there, that is not history. That is your work,
Right.
right? That is your own work. So we do not go in there. We do not change, God's name. Most people don't even know God's name, and I think that's probably a good thing, because they use a name which is not even associated with his actual name, which is
Right.
really crazy, but that's another story. They'll use things like Elohim and Yahweh and whatever, but that is not his name, and it doesn't even translate to his name. So that's the crazy thing. And then, they change other people's name as well, going back to the J's and the Y's, and, using, Jesus and Yeshua, and, all of these names which have no bearing on the children of Israel. If you are a child of Israel, if you are a member of this family, if you believe in being an Israelite, you need to know the God of Israel's name, which is the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and his son, even the Christ, and the Spirit of truth, which we know as the Holy Ghost, right? So this is a common understanding. We keep the new moon, and we keep the laws, the statutes, and the commandments. These are things that are very important. We're not in the business of going into the King James Version of the Bible and changing things around just to suit our own needs or our own sensibility or lack thereof. We are reading this book because it is presented to us in such a way. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you mentioned her name was from a ship, and this is really quite incredible. She's named after a ship. And, we have been given names that a lot of us maybe don't like, but it's not about the name so much as to what you are doing with that name, or who are you. Make that the best name ever by doing the things that you're supposed to do, right? So,
And it goes back to being a witness, right? And, I think about if you go out to the forest and you cut a tree and you look at it, you'll see the different rings. And the different rings, when they study the history of that environment, going back 50, 100, maybe 1,000 years, each ring tells a story, and you see how it all connects to one another. Oh wow, this year there was a forest fire. That year there was a flood. That you could see that. So although we, like, okay, hey, I wish I had my original Israelite name if the 400 years never happened, but that's not the case. But my job right now is to be a witness to what did happen. And so when they
Right.
tell the story of my father's father's father and tell the story of me, my name is Jeffrey. Well, why is it Jeffrey? I can tell the story and a trajectory of our
Yes.
family. And so if
Exactly.
I wipe all that away, then all this history is lost and we've learned nothing. Right. And so I think it's small-minded, and we think we have to understand when we talk about our family and our unity, it's not just about who's living today, but it's also about our forefathers and about generations that have
Exactly.
not been born yet. And we have a responsibility to tell the truth about what took place during this time, and our name is a part of that.
And you know what? Even when you're changing your name, it's like you're cutting off your legacy. You're
Yeah.
cutting off your, those that came before you. You are separating yourself from that foundation. And that's the intention, to separate us from the foundation. So why are you buying into the things that people want you to do instead of doing the things that you're supposed to do? Right? Don't buy into that garbage. Keep your own identity. Keep your identity, because with it there is strength. Without it, you are anybody's. So
But I love her story. What I've heard so
mhm,
far. Thank you for sharing that.
yes,
I'm gonna follow up with that and find out more about her. I think that's fascinating.
Please do. Please do.
so yes, thank you so much. Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to go into this next gentleman. So let me just tell you a little story. Now, one thing that I've learned from coming into this nation is that there is no such things as a coincidence. And this was just fascinating because I was completely blown away. Just out of the blue, myself and a couple of brethren decided that we're going to travel, and we're going to go to Mattawa. Some say Matawa. Okay, so I say Matawa, but they say Mattawa. Mattawa is a small town in Ontario. Now, going to this town, we only went for a couple of days, and we went to a few museums. One of the great things about this town, it's named after one of the great rivers in Canada, which is the Mattawa River. And this particular town is where the Mattawa River meets the Ottawa River. So there's a bridge where both rivers meet. It's just such an incredible story behind it, and just looking at water and the way they come together in such a such harmony is so incredible. Anyways, we went to a museum and we took some pictures, and I discovered this individual. And the funny thing is, you know this subject about the slaves that influence our foundation, that influence our lives, um, that contributed to society, was already a subject. We already put forward, yeah, this is what we're going to do this week. It just so happened that we found this individual, and his name is Saint Firmin Monistein. Okay, so Saint Firmin Monistein. Now, this individual, and it's so funny that we were speaking about Haiti because he was actually born in Haiti. He was a doctor, a medical doctor that studied in Haiti, and he came to Canada and he upgraded his medical degree to so that he can work in Canada. And after doing so, he was going to settle in a town called Timmins. So he's traveling to Timmins and decides to stop at Mattawa. He decides to stop there. And while he's having a conversation with the restaurant owner, that individual encouraged him or persuaded him to stay in Mattawa and set up a medical practice. And so he did. So he never really went to Timmins. After all, he stayed in Mattawa. But it just so happened, which was the most incredible thing, that years later, he became a politician, a Canadian politician, and eventually a mayor for that town. He is down in the history books, guys. Listen to this. He is down in the history books as the first Black mayor in Canada.
Oh, wow.
Could you imagine that? The first Black mayor in Canada.
Oh, wow.
Found him in Mattawa.
Oh, wow. You weren't even looking. You weren't even looking,
We
right?
weren't even looking. Could you imagine? Come on, guys, that must blow your minds. That was
Yeah.
like, wow. We weren't looking for that. We were there just relaxing, having a great time. And there we found Mr. S.F. Monistein,
Mm.
first black mayor. Look, it's got it here. The story of Dr. S.F. Monistein, Canada's first black mayor.
Wow.
Wow. That
Wow.
was just so awesome. So I
Wow.
thought, you know what? Gotta put this guy here so that we
Yeah,
can all see. Yeah.
absolutely. I assume this is not something you learned in school in Canada.
I've never heard of
Yeah.
never heard of this person
Yeah.
ever. But and that's why we need to look into our history,
Our
because
story, right?
we will find these kinds of gems. You
Right.
know, his life was it was up and down. There was a situation where his son was killed, and the person that was prosecuted, the case was pretty much thrown out. He got off, which was kind of sad. And he just looked at it and said, this is huge injustice. But this is after he became a mayor. It's like,
Mm.
come on. It's like we still find a degree of injustices, but
That's
you
it.
know what? At least we know that things are possible,
Hmm.
that we have great people that we can look to see that it is possible to climb. As you said, Elder Jeffrey, it doesn't matter the time, you know, if you put your mind to it, you can climb. And
Hmm.
the one thing is, many of us will sit down and we will say that, oh, we need reparations and we need this and we need that and we need all these kind of, well, who's going to get it for you? You got to go
Hmm.
and stand in these positions so that you can make these changes, you can
Right.
affect these changes.
Right.
And you can't do that if you're not learning, if you don't get your education, if you're not out there, you
Right.
know trying to consume this information. So we have to do this for ourselves. No one's going to do it for us. We can't
Right.
sit back and expect anyone to do it. We have to
Right.
do it ourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
I love it.
yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So
Right.
okay, so let's go to our next slide, unless anyone's got any comments on that one.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
this
right.
is that everyone can relate to
Yes.
the musical side, so we don't have to spend too much because we only have another 15 minutes or so. But we all know that the music that is so popular in the United States and Europe, it all had its root or its foundation in Negro spirituals.
Mm.
And this is where our contribution to society is phenomenal. I mean, words cannot express the importance of music. Music brings, okay, the way I like to look at it is we have an orchestra, everyone playing a different instrument, but they're using the same chord. I'm not a musician, but they're playing in the same key. So that one accord, if you will, is there, and that harmony is therein as well. And if you so happens to have a director, then you can't have a greater director than the God of Israel. And this is amazing that it is only natural or it's only fitting that his children, whether they be slaves or whether they be free men and women, set the tone for the harmony and the productivity and the prosperity of the world. So
Mm.
when I see the Negro spirituals, and from that we have soul and R&B and all the different versions of music, it's proud to be a descendant of of Israel, because out of all of our effort, and the most important thing, they did not sing about fiction. They sang about the glorification of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. They told their biblical history and culture through music. Phenomenal.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Um, you talk about the slaves, when they came to the Americas and what they were singing to express themselves. And the beautiful thing is, or actually it's a very sad thing, because they weren't able to read the Bible, they weren't able to read scriptures, but they used to sing about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses, and Daniel, and
Yes.
they sang about Joseph. They sang about all of our forefathers, even before the Second Testament, and which is really quite incredible
Yeah.
because, you know, when you think about it, you know that this has to be Israel, because when the Christians were coming, they were teaching pretty much the Second Testament, right? But they were singing the first. They
Right.
were singing about our
Exactly.
forefathers, and it's like, where did they get that from?
Right.
And why did not they not sing about, you know, Jesus and Peter and Paul and John? And that didn't come until like years and years and years and years later. But
Yeah.
right at the beginning, they were singing about our forefathers, and this was where you get your soul music. You know, your Negro spiritual, your soul music. This is where it started from. But it was more than that, because, as you said, you know, the music brings harmony. You know, it was in the acting, it was in, you know, whatever it is that they did. But even before we went into slavery, as I said, you know, we've been in slavery, enslaved so many times, and yet still we were able to contribute. It doesn't matter when it was throughout history, we were able to contribute. And Safia, you brought up Mr. John Black.
Blank, yes. Yes, one of the earliest black people recorded in the United Kingdom, who was at the court of Henry VIII, who is known for chopping off his wife's head. So he was playing music for a man who had the most ghastly temper. But what so you know, yes, he was a great trumpet player, a great horn player. He could play many different types of instruments. But one thing that I want you all to know, if you take anything away, this man said, I am so good. I believe in my talent so much, or two things actually, but I believe in my talent so much that I want more money. He asked King Henry VIII, one of the most malicious kings, for more money because he deserved more money for his talents to be the leading musician. And King Henry VIII was so overwhelmed and pleased with his music, he gave him more money. He gave him exactly what he asked for. And there you go. He asked the most malicious king in history, one of the most malicious kings, for more money. And he managed to get that. And he also prayed towards Jerusalem, which I only found out this year. And I think that is something quite interesting. Not towards Mecca, but towards Jerusalem. Very different from the others. Yes.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Look at those crumbs our forefathers left us.
Yes, I'm
The way
telling you. Oh my
help connect.
gosh.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. He reminds me of the story of David, right? Like you can
Yes.
imagine that this is king
Yes.
have these terrible spirits around him, and the only thing that can make him come at peace is when an Israelite plays the music for him.
Yes.
Wow.
Sounds kind of reflects on that story to me.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that is absolutely incredible. But you know, there are so many artists that we can actually go into. But you know what, guys? If you have something that you know about anyone in particular, just put it in the chat as well. But there are just so many, you know, and that's why we kind of left this one for a general discussion,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, the music affects our life. You know, it is so funny because when you think about it, how it all works, you know, remember that the earth is 70% water, and likewise, we are made in that fashion where we are 70% water, which really speaks to our spirituality, which is more on the 70% side, you know, because we're like 30% or 33% physical, right? And the rest is water or spiritual. But also, with that being said, water works with waves, and this is going in a little bit scientific, but you scientists, you can go out there, you can check this out. But water works with waves, and music is also with waves. And you imagine the waves in your body connects with the waves in the music, you know, and that's why we're such a musical person, you know, or people. We have a rhythm that works from within, you know, and it's affected by the music that we listen to. So our forefathers were always looking to music to
Yeah.
celebrate the God of Israel, to celebrate their victories, to celebrate. And when they were down, they were singing and they were writing poetries. Safia, they were writing poetry. They were writing
That's
music
right.
that was appealing
You're
from
randomly
within.
There
So,
is forever.
you know,
And that's so beautiful. And
and
it's like
that's
what you
right. I have to say, Mo Gaiman, this is so incredibly true. Music is so powerful, and the enemy knows it. They do. And that is why these corporate entities pay big bucks to put out the negative music. And you see
Right.
that time and time
Absolutely.
again. It is
Yes.
so prevalent now. You're
Yes.
so correct. No more
Yes.
of those sweets, the Platters or Marvin Gaye, no more beautiful lyrics or stories. No more of that. Now you're hearing all kinds of things that will just make your blood boil when you sit down and actually listen to the words.
Yeah. It's
So,
true. And that's, and you see all the way through, that music is more a form of communication than it is entertainment, right? It's both, but more in communication, right? And you can think about the wisdom of our forefathers in its state
yes.
of enslavement. I don't have How can I tell this story? How can I let someone know this is the path to go to the Underground Railroad? How can I let them, all these, how can I, all these things that I how can I do it? I did it through the music. I did it through the rhythm. I did it through, the words that we use, or the dance that's made. All those things tied together. And even today, like you said, you can see that it's not just entertainment, the music, right? When our young people listen to the music, it's not just entertainment, they're not just having fun. It's like it's actually giving them a message, something
Hmm.
that they can pull in and adopt. And I was talking about this with some friends the other day. I remember when I'm old enough to remember when rap had first started, at least the current permutation of rap, and it went through a while of just being a party type of environment to and ended up be going down an educational path. It was right. There was a lot of, like, some of the same information we're talking about was then being utilized, and these people all over the country and all over the world are like, oh wow, there's some information being given here. I think like Public Enemy and some of those other groups. But like you said, the corporate entities, it didn't take long for them to see what was happening, and they made a left, and it
Yes.
started to go down to the gangster rap, and a lot of the negativity started to come in, and now that's what definitely is a lot of the majority, if I would say, utilizing the art form, and like you said, the vibration that the music gives you and that you absorb as well, in a negative fashion, and so I think, even that whole point, we could do a whole thing on the history of music and to
Yes.
see about how it was, the gifts are there, but then, like in most things, it becomes exploited, and our gifts are exploited and actually ends up being negatively affecting us, because of that. And if we don't take ownership of it and control of it, then it won't be able to have the benefit that it's supposed to for ourselves.
Okay. So, thank you, Elder Jeffrey, for that. And a lot of people are here for a very specific reason. They're here for a very specific reason. And it's so appropriate that we've touched on this particular subject because now we're going to have our beautiful Safia grace us with her wonderful words.
Thank you. This poem called "Fly Sun" is written for people who have just inspired me and is so inspiring throughout history. And I would, of course, like to dedicate it to our elder Shadrach, who first broke down the Bible for me in such an incredible way, our master teacher, and also to the first person who I actually realized who I could call a priest, because I never really. I mean, priests, I'd always fallen out with priests, but I met priest Ricardo, and I was completely blown away by the notion of what a priest actually is. So this is in dedication and in honor of the people who inspire me. Dear son, fly son, when I first watched you somersault in your sleep, I knew you was never gonna let gravity hold you down. You would point towards the clouds like they held milk and scampered through grass choirs. The world was always singing to you. You were born not long after our kind was allowed to make clean numbers. I will never forget when the village flattened the earth by dancing too hard. I made a promise to raise you in tomorrow's world, pinched your cloud-filled cheeks, made you believe your birthright was good. How could I tell you banks were built from our undelivered prayers when you became an answer? A womb should not be the only safe place for a boy to dream. No son of mine shall have time treat him like a horse. One day, when the rain is taking a long nap, I'm gonna watch you in the air, roaming as far as the coconut trees can see. Yes, son, these are the hopes I got for you. Be good now. Keep those shirts ironed and keep your head up. Love, your mother.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, don't make me cry. That was so pretty. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful.
Yeah, that,
Wow. So, wow, yes. Big
absolutely.
applause, thumbs up,
Yes.
hundreds, fire drops, mic
Yes.
drop. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Safia. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Elder Jeffrey and Safia, it's been such a pleasure having you both on this show. And we're going to have many more shows, God willing. And we're hoping that everybody puts their titles in. We've received a few, what subjects that people want us to explore, but we hope to have you guys back on our show in the near future, and I hope you will accept again. So thank
My
you so
pleasure.
much.
My
um,
pleasure. I love this. This is great. Thank you for having me.
yes, yes, thank you,
Thank
thank you
you.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
And
I learned so
unfortunately,
much.
I think Elder Michael is off the air again, but I know that he too appreciates everybody that's here. He appreciates your comments, your commitment to being here, because you you make this exciting when you are here listening with us and learning with us as well. So we just want to thank you all. Thank you all, guests. Like I said before, if you haven't had an opportunity to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe, please do so. That will help our numbers, that will help people also to come and learn about what we have to share. And don't forget, we also have our Friday nights and Saturdays. So please, you'll be missing some really great lessons if you don't sign in or watch those. So please, once again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a blessed day. And once again, happy Freedom Month. Peace.